Welcome to AI Briefing. The content of the briefing includes LSE Group, when equities are no longer the stock in trade. A suspect to build server production line in US to tap AI boom. Here's everything Biden, she agreed to at high-stakes summit. Microsoft launches AI chips as developers seek NVIDIA alternatives. Tencent says it stockpiled NVIDIA chips but seeks Chinese replacements. LSE Group, when equities are no longer the stock in trade. Financial Times. The London Stock Exchange Group, LSEG, is increasingly shifting its focus away from traditional trading activities towards data and analytics. Such businesses now account for around two-thirds of the group's revenues. The company acquired data group Refinitiv in 2019, making it one of the world's biggest financial data companies. LSEG's partnership with Microsoft to develop a desktop analytics terminal to rival Bloomberg also demonstrates its commitment to this new strategy. Stock exchanges worldwide are diversifying away from their historical activities due to a decline in listed companies and increased access to alternative funding for businesses. The LSEG's declining proportion of revenue from equity trading, from 15% in 2017 to under 3% in H1 2021, has raised questions about the company's continued interest in trading. However, LSEG has defended its approach and vocally supported London listings. A suspect to build server production line in US to tap AI boom. Nikkei Asia. Asustek Computer is building a server production line in Silicon Valley, California, in order to be closer to its customers in North America. Production is scheduled to begin by early 2024. Asustek is also building a manufacturing site in Taoyuan, Taiwan, to produce its own motherboards, graphics cards, mini PCs, and server-related products. The company is considering setting up assembly production in Europe and other areas to meet customer demands. Asustek is targeting the AI boom by making server units that have AI chips or graphics processors to train large language models and generate reasoning. Here's everything Biden, she agreed to at high-stakes summit. Bloomberg. US President Joe Biden and Chinese leader Xi Jinping have reached a series of agreements during high-level talks aimed at stabilizing their strained relationship. The agreements include stronger cooperation on counter-narcotics efforts, the reinstatement of high-level military-to-military conversations, the establishment of a working group on artificial intelligence, and an increase in the number of direct flights between the two countries. However, there were also areas of disagreement, with China warning the US that its territorial ambitions towards Taiwan are unstoppable. Microsoft launches AI chips as developers seek NVIDIA alternatives. Financial Times. Microsoft has unveiled its first custom chips for artificial intelligence, AI, in the cloud. The two processors, named Cobalt and Maya, will be deployed in Microsoft's Azure data centers next year. Cobalt is a general-purpose chip based on ARM designs, while Maya is a specialized AI accelerator. The chips will support Microsoft services, including OpenAI and Copilot. The move follows Intel and AMD's efforts to compete with NVIDIA, which currently dominates the market for AI processors. Demand for NVIDIA's chips has outstripped supply over the past year, causing Microsoft to rely on other cloud providers for extra capacity. The new chips are part of Microsoft's multi-billion-dollar bet on generative AI and are expected to improve performance and efficiencies. The chips have already been endorsed by OpenAI, which has relied on NVIDIA's chips until now. Microsoft's data center chips will follow in the footsteps of Google's TPUs and Amazon Web Services Trainium processors. Tencent says it stockpiled NVIDIA chips but seeks Chinese replacements. CNN. Chinese tech giant Tencent has rushed to build up a large inventory of AI chips before US export restrictions came into effect. The company purchased components from NVIDIA early, allowing it to continue developing its generative AI model for at least a couple of generations. Tencent is now scouting for new suppliers within China for training chips. The US and China have increasingly escalated a feud over access to advanced semiconductors and the materials and equipment needed to create the technology. The US recently reduced the types of semiconductors that American companies can sell to China. China stocks drop, traders cite profit-taking post-Biden-Xi meet. Bloomberg. Chinese stocks, including the Hang Seng China Enterprises Index and the CSI 300 Index, fell on Thursday as traders took profit following the meeting between Chinese President Xi Jinping and US President Joe Biden. The meeting, which was largely in line with expectations, resulted in progress in repairing strained ties between the two countries but also saw Biden refer to Xi as a dictator. Additionally, China's property sector continued to perform poorly, with home prices falling the most in 8 years in October. The Hang Seng Tech Index also slumped, led by a sell-off in Xiaomi Corp following the debut of its electric vehicle. What is the state of mainland China's business environment for Taiwanese firms? South China Morning Post. Taiwanese companies operating in mainland China are facing a complicated and unpredictable business environment, causing frustration and complaints among business owners. Taiwanese firms have complained about increased bureaucracy and additional checks, especially during periods of heightened tension between Taiwan and mainland China, such as elections. Despite these challenges, Taiwanese businesses are unlikely to seriously consider leaving mainland China due to the size of the market and geographical proximity. Some Taiwanese companies have accused Beijing of politicizing trade and complain of being given the cold shoulder at international trade expos. The number of Taiwanese exhibitors at the China International Import Expo has dwindled in recent years. Beijing has launched a probe into Taiwan's trade barriers, causing further uncertainty for Taiwanese firms. While Beijing has attempted to attract Taiwanese enterprises through integration plans and promises to improve the well-being of Taiwanese businesses, many Taiwanese companies remain skeptical. Nonetheless, most Taiwanese firms are hopeful that cross-strait ties will stabilize following the next election and have no intention of leaving mainland China. 5 takeaways from the Biden-Xi summit at California's Filoli estate. Al Jazeera. U.S. President Joe Biden and Chinese President Xi Jinping held a 4-hour meeting in California on Wednesday, their first face-to-face meeting in a year. The leaders discussed a range of issues, including military contacts, open communication, Taiwan, the economy, artificial intelligence, fentanyl production, and the war in Gaza. In a significant outcome of the talks, the two leaders agreed to resume military contacts that China had severed following a visit to Taiwan by the then Speaker of the House of Representatives Nancy Pelosi. The resumption of military contacts is seen as essential to avoiding misunderstandings and miscalculations that could lead to conflict. Biden emphasized the importance of open communication between the two presidents and highlighted their long working relationship. Xi discussed Taiwan, calling for the U.S. to stop arming the island and support China's peaceful reunification. The economy was another key topic, with Xi noting the sluggish recovery from the COVID-19 pandemic and China's own economic challenges. The leaders also discussed AI, efforts to tackle the production of fentanyl, and the war in Gaza. Chinese pork prices to stay low, fueling deflationary pressures. Bloomberg. Chinese pork prices are expected to remain low for an extended period of time, impacting pig farmers and contributing to deflationary pressures in the Chinese economy. A surplus of hogs and slow consumption due to a slowing economy are likely to keep the market under pressure, with prices potentially not recovering until the second half of 2023. The low prices are a concern for agricultural markets and meat exporters that rely on Chinese consumption, as well as wider financial markets given pork's weighting in the basket of goods that measures inflation in China. Biden reaffirms Taiwan's stance to Xi at meeting on APEC sidelines. South China Morning Post. The U.S. and China have agreed to cooperate in fighting fentanyl and other narcotics, manage artificial intelligence, AI, resume military-to-military contacts, and maintain the status quo on Taiwan, according to U.S. President Joe Biden. The two leaders held a 2-hour meeting and a working lunch, after which Beijing confirmed that the two sides had agreed to work together on narcotics control and AI, and resume military communication. China also stressed the need for cooperation and mutual respect, but said its concerns, especially regarding Taiwan, must be respected. Biden and Xi strike deals on military communications, fentanyl, AI. Bloomberg. U.S. President Joe Biden and his Chinese counterpart Xi Jinping have discussed combating the fentanyl crisis, boosting military communications, and holding a dialogue about artificial intelligence at a summit designed to repair their country's strained relationship. The meeting, which lasted more than 4 hours, saw the two leaders agree to increase flights between the U.S. and China next year. Both leaders also expressed concern about the conflict between Israel and Hamas. Joe Biden hails progress after Xi Jinping talks, but Taiwan still the sticking point. The Guardian. U.S. President Joe Biden has described his summit with Chinese President Xi Jinping as productive and constructive, but acknowledged that the two nations remain in a competitive relationship. The meeting, which lasted for more than 4 hours at a mansion near San Francisco, covered a range of issues, including drug trafficking, military communication, and global risks related to artificial intelligence. However, the fate of Taiwan, which she reportedly described as the biggest, most potentially dangerous issue in U.S.-China relations, remained unresolved. During the summit, Biden confirmed that he still viewed Xi as a dictator, stating, "Look, he's a dictator in the sense that he's a guy who runs a country that is a communist country that's based on a form of government totally different than ours." China's foreign ministry portrayed Xi as taking a tough line, urging the US to stop arming Taiwan and support China's reunification. The summit also addressed US sanctions on China's high-tech sector, with Xi arguing that such actions hinder China's development. Despite the tensions, both leaders expressed a commitment to stabilizing the relationship and finding areas of agreement. First FT, Joe Biden and Xi Jinping hold summit in attempt to stabilize relations. Financial Times. U.S. Vice President Joe Biden and Chinese President Xi Jinping held a summit in San Francisco yesterday to try and stabilize U.S.-China relations. The meeting, their first since 2021, focused on managing risks of further deterioration in the relationship and included discussions on artificial intelligence and climate change. The two countries also agreed to accelerate the rollout of renewable energy to reduce their reliance on fossil fuels. Biden is under pressure to rein in Israel's military campaign in Gaza within the next few weeks to limit civilian casualties. Cyber experts worry AI could create a world of haves and have-nots. Wall Street Journal. Artificial intelligence, AI, could cause a divide in cybersecurity, according to experts. Companies that can afford to research AI technology will be better protected against hackers than those that cannot. While AI offers benefits for security professionals, it can also enhance hackers' abilities. For instance, phishing emails can now be produced quickly and lack the telltale signs of a fraudulent message. Companies that lack the resources or technical skills to understand AI and defend against attacks enabled by the technology risk being left behind. Takeaways: Biden and Xi meeting, Taiwan, Iran, fentanyl and AI. Reuters. U.S. President Joe Biden and China's Xi Jinping met for 4 hours to discuss various issues, including Taiwan, military talks, leader-to-leader communication, cooperation, fentanyl, Iran, and artificial intelligence, AI. Xi emphasized the need for cooperation, dialogue, and respect, and suggested that China and the U.S. set an example for other countries. They agreed to cooperate on addressing the source of fentanyl and discussed the Middle East crisis, with Biden asking China to urge Iran to avoid provocative steps. They also discussed the risks of AI in military or nuclear operations. Well, folks, it seems like the London Stock Exchange Group, LSEG, is changing its tune. Instead of focusing on traditional trading activities, LSEG is shifting its attention towards data and analytics, which now account for around 2/3 of its revenues. They even acquired data group Refinitiv in 2019, making them one of the biggest financial data companies in the world. It's clear that stock exchanges worldwide are diversifying away from their historical activities, as listed companies decline and alternative funding options increase. LSEG's declining revenue from equity trading has raised some eyebrows, but they're still defending their approach and supporting London listings. Meanwhile, Asustek Computer is getting ready to tap into the AI boom by building a server production line in Silicon Valley. They're also considering setting up assembly production in Europe and other areas to meet customer demands. It's all about being closer to the customers, folks. And speaking of AI, Microsoft has launched its own custom chips for AI in the cloud. They're called Cobalt and Maya, and they'll be deployed in Microsoft's Azure data centers next year. The move comes as Microsoft aims to compete with NVIDIA, which currently dominates the market for AI processors. The new chips are expected to improve performance and efficiencies, and they've already been endorsed by OpenAI. But it's not just Microsoft that's making moves in the AI chip space. Chinese tech giant Tencent has been stockpiling NVIDIA chips before US export restrictions kicked in. But now they're on the hunt for Chinese replacements. The US-China feud over access to advanced semiconductors and technology materials is heating up, folks. And it's not just chips that are causing tension. Chinese stocks took a hit after the meeting between President Xi Jinping and President Joe Biden. However, progress was made in repairing strained ties between the two countries, with agreements on counter-narcotics efforts, military-to-military conversations, and the establishment of a working group on AI. Now let's talk about mainland China's business environment for Taiwanese firms. It's a complicated and unpredictable situation, causing frustration and complaints among business owners. Taiwanese companies have faced increased bureaucracy and checks, especially during times of heightened tension between Taiwan and mainland China. But despite the challenges, most Taiwanese firms aren't seriously considering leaving mainland China. The market is just too big to pass up. However, they have accused Beijing of politicizing trade and have felt like they're being given the cold shoulder at international trade expos. It's a tough situation, but most Taiwanese companies are hopeful that cross-strait ties will stabilize in the future. And finally, let's not forget about the meeting between President Biden and President Xi. The two leaders discussed a range of issues, from military contacts to artificial intelligence to Taiwan. They agreed to stronger cooperation on counter-narcotics efforts and the establishment of a working group on AI. However, there were areas of disagreement, especially when it came to Taiwan. China warned the US that its territorial ambitions towards Taiwan are unstoppable. It's clear that the fate of Taiwan remains a sticking point in US-China relations. So, folks, that's a wrap for today's news. It's clear that AI is the name of the game, whether it's in the form of chips, data, or discussions between world leaders. And let's not forget about the ongoing tensions between the US and China. It's a delicate dance, but both sides seem committed to finding areas of agreement. Now it's your turn, folks. What are your thoughts on these news stories? I'm all ears. Thank you for tuning in. The content above showcases the latest briefing reports and analytical synopses, thoughtfully curated by the 6Do team. These insights stem from a wide array of reputable media outlets, think tanks, government sources, and specialized experts worldwide. We encourage you to explore these sources for a comprehensive perspective. Keep in mind that while the content may not always align with the official standpoint of 6Do Brief, it's not meant to be taken as absolute directives for decision-making. Comprising seasoned media professionals, learned scholars, and accomplished scientists, the 6Do team embodies a trailblazing, fully independent media entity. To customize 6Do Brief to meet your professional needs, you have the option to subscribe to a diverse array of briefings on our website, 6dobrief.com. Regardless of your location, you can conveniently receive 6Do Brief via email.